online, and it's Stephen O'Grady from OCT joining us. And Mia, is that you? Any public comment this morning?
It's Peggy today, Mia's sick.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
No problem, no public comment.
Okay, thanks. We're going to go just to a few chairman business items. First of all, some updates from the chairs meeting, which was just a few things to point out today. The select board this evening will be getting a presentation on the Skakit Beach Resiliency Study put by the Woods Hole Group, which I've seen before. I think I pointed it out to you guys in the past. They presented to Nate and a group almost not a year, last fall maybe. Anyway, thinking about how we had reached out a couple of times to the Buckley property, which could be very crucial for this project, or some of this property. And we never got a response. But anyway, if you're interested in what they're thinking of doing over there, it is interesting, and it's a fact of life that the water's rising, and they need to figure out how this can still be an asset to the town. And
do they have that online?
Yeah, the select board will be online. You could watch it online too. You've got like, what, 4 hours of meetings tonight, Andrea? It's a lot.
A lot, but the interesting part is the different plans. They're recommending, there's several scenarios, so it's interesting to kind of paw through them and see what's the cost versus the length of the benefit.
Right. And you think about what they did at Nauset Beach. It's the same effort to preserve what we have, one of the things that makes this town special.
And who knew it would last this long?
Yeah. Okay, one other thing, next week, 18th to 25th, is Arts Week downtown. Cultural Council promoting this. Supposed to be very family-oriented because it's vacation week. There'll be public walks to look at art. There's a gallery night. And one of the things that I wasn't aware of was this little box that sits outside the community center called Make Art, Leave Art. It's mini art, and if you are artistically inclined in any way, even if you paint shells, you can go leave a piece and take a piece. So especially if you have young ones, that's kind of a cool idea too. There is now a seasonal property sticker in place for Kent's Point from June 1st to December 30th, so that if you get a beach sticker, any beach sticker, you need to have a sticker on your car in order to be able to park there.
I think it's June 15th to September 15th.
June 15th to what?
I thought it was June 15th to September 15th, but.
Okay, I read
But
June
you-
1st to December
Okay.
30th, so there's two different, double check. But if you have a beach sticker, you can go park there.
It's the
What-
same as the landings, if anyone is familiar.
What's your
with
dates,
what the
Lynn?
dates are.
I'm sorry?
What are your dates again? June 1 to what?
To December 30th,
Wow.
To December 30th? No, that's definitely not.
yeah, I don't remember.
So, yeah, no, that is,
You know if
I'm not
those
sure
are
about the,
resident specific?
yeah, but it's definitely,
Well, they were
It's-
pushing for all,
it's-
they were pushing for all year, so it could be December
Yeah.
3rd.
but it
I'm
isn't.
surprised, though.
Conservation Commission, it
Okay.
isn't.
Yeah, I think it's.
Well,
I think you had the right dates.
But, I mean, the select board may have overturned our recommendation, but.
No.
So
No.
what do they think the dates are?
I
It's
think
the same
it's
as-
June
I mean,
15th
it's
to
the same as Nauset
September.
Beach.
Same
Same
as
as
Nauset
Nauset
Beach.
Same as not.
I think it's the same as Nauset Beach, but online, I was just trying to look it up online really quick, but.
Well,
I don't
okay,
want to
yeah,
say-
and actually, you probably are right, because Molly did send out an update from that, and it says June 15th is the beginning date, so I'm
Yeah,
sure
that-
Judith
Yeah.
is correct on that, and
I thought it was gonna
so
be
ignore
annual.
that.
Well, there's confusion about, in terms of Nauset Beach and some of the other beaches, closures to dogs for birds, and then stickers. I mean,
Right.
there are different dates for different reasons, but we had really wanted this to be consistent so that there would be less confusion. So it's seasonal to match the beach and the
Okay.
landings.
Seasonal, so that off-season, you can go there without a sticker, is that correct? Yeah, okay.
And is that resident only or anybody that buys?
So
a beach
it is
sticker?
any
Yeah.
beach sticker.
Okay,
If you are not a resident, well, even if you are a resident, you must purchase the sticker. But there are stickers for sale for non-residents.
okay.
So they're costly, but,
They're like a beach sticker.
I'm sorry?
They're
Yeah.
like a beach sticker
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, it's a non-resident
Yeah.
sticker.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, and the last item that we were reminded of is that committee reappointments come up in June, or the end of June.
Yeah, we're all
Um,
timing out.
June 17th is our June meeting, and so we will look at it then. And I'm going to say now that I will not be chair again. I have been chair for 3 years, and I have one more year left on my cycle before they boot me off. So I really would like to help someone be that person. I will help you as much as I can, but I really feel like it should be me to change leadership. So I want you to think about all those pieces, a chair, a vice chair, a clerk, and CPC rep, since Hardy will be timing out and hopefully will come back after a year if he feels led to do so.
Lynn, can I
Yes.
also request that as you think about reorganization, that your chair and vice chair function directly with staff, both together? Because that way, the transition to leadership and the spread of leadership, we're really asking our boards to have a team approach with staff. So if you think about that, it's a shared load, and then you can rotate at will. In an ideal situation, every person on the committee will have rotated into a chair position at one point.
And I confess, I have not been very good about delegating and saying, you guys, you need to do this. So it's definitely my fault, not great leadership there, but anyway, something to think about. We'll talk about it again later on. And so that's it for those updates, except for that, I'm gonna just ask Hardy, and I didn't include it in here because I hadn't thought that there was an update, but just a brief CPC overview from your last meeting, which you did have recently.
Yeah, basically the majority of the discussion was on whether or not to have a second application period. We did not vote on anything on that, and there were pros and cons to that, i.e. more work involved for that, if we have any money left, if we don't necessarily have a fall meeting. There's a lot of ifs there, so we tabled that for further discussion. And I've got numbers here, but I'm not absolutely sure about them. I think we have in our budget left, principal-wise, $117,425. But I need clarification from somebody on that, because I have trouble reading this.
I never understood that. I will confess that. And just, just a quick announcement for anyone that's not aware, it's OPC's Beach Earth Day Cleanup on April 25th, which is a Saturday. You can go to the website and sign up for any beach landing public area that is water related that you might be interested in.
Oh, okay.
Thank
So we're doing
Sorry.
pond cleanups?
It's beach pond.
No, it's beach
Or
pond
beach
landings,
and pond.
so
Everything.
I know they'll be at Rock Harbor, Skakit, Nauset, Pleasant Bay,
Any
Cedar
landing.
Pond,
Any.
any public access to water. And, I mean, it's helpful if people sign up, but you don't have to, you can just show up. Or you can be completely independent and just
Yeah.
run around and pick up trash. And if you'd like to drop it off at Rock Harbor, you can, if not,
you. Or pick up stray dirty bags.
straight
To leave.
Is it
By the
up
way,
at Rock
for
Harbor or
anybody-
Nauset? So last year was Nauset
Oh,
where they
so-
dumped it.
go, go online.
Yeah, I think Nauset is sort of the headquarters of where you bring it all
Probably
to.
on OPC's website.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is, yeah,
And
all
I
the
think
information
they usually have a
is.
big dumpster there
Yeah.
and coffee and donuts.
I do Cedar Pond down near the new OCT property there, done that for years, and I think our best find, although it wasn't litter, but it was a dead otter.
Ooh.
Yeah, pretty,
How big is a dead
pretty,
otter?
pretty interesting to find it. This was a little one, so probably just a baby, so like only about yay big, but pretty interesting to stumble across an otter carcass in the Red Swamp Marsh.
I love otters. Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to promote or? Okay. We're going to move to the awareness initiative, but before we do that, I just wanted to sort of lead into it. I did speak with George about this as my staff liaison, and he agreed that when we put something tangible together, we go to him first with it, and then he will go to Amanda, one of you A's, and then whoever our liaison from the select board is at that time, we'll also include them. He's willing to come and talk with us if we think that it would be helpful to have him come and sort of bounce things off of. Just because so much of the planning, the open space rec plan and the new comprehensive plan, what we're talking about sort of comes a lot from that, and is also trying to meet those goals. So that's just about him. I think I told you, I reached out to APCC, and Andrew or Christy will come and speak with us either in May or June, and I, made sure they knew that they could do it by Zoom, so it didn't have to be in person. So that's something we'll plan after this. I was really grateful that they come and sort of talk to us about it, but I think that that's all part of their campaign, is to inspire the towns around here to take action in this way, raising awareness. The other thing I found helpful in thinking about all this is or something that I think we all need to be knowledgeable of, is the history of open space in Orleans, and all that is on our page. Because in order to say to people, here's the value of this, you have to be able to say, here's what's been done, and look at the benefit of this. I had sent, and I don't think I sent copies to both of you, but I picked up some pieces online, just blurbs about raising awareness through a public outreach campaign, and I sent it to all of them. There are highlights in there sort of to inspire us to think about what this awareness campaign might look like, or initiative. But I also pulled an article, which I didn't send you, which I love this. It's an article by Mark Robinson that he wrote for the Provincetown Independent in December of 2025. And there's a couple of quotes I'm just going to read to you, just for thinking purposes, some pieces of it. One of the things he said is, much of our natural heritage has been lost to development, but much has been restored. We have lost our barn owls, whippoorwills, bobwhite, quail, and meadowlarks, but we have regained our osprey, turkey, piping plovers, and even bald eagles. Another thing he said, we are exploring several innovations in environmental protection here. One is eco-restoration, turning pockets of blight into attractive jewels in the landscape. And this talking about pocket parks and smaller visuals of conserved open spaces for people to go. Preserving natural land is the best landscape strategy for climate resilience. And this piece I really liked, because thinking about who we are trying to speak to here needs to include visitors. And he said, travel without learning is just loitering, and I love that phrase. My wish is that tourists will go home with some appreciation of the hard work that goes on, mostly behind the scenes, to preserve some of the Cape Cod experience, even if we cannot keep it intact everywhere. Special places don't stay special by accident, and I love that phrase. So I'm throwing that out for thought as we go through this. And David very graciously offered to sort of lead this part of it in initiating the discussion on what we might come up with. One other thing I want to say about that is that I feel like, or at least, and I may be, my window is here, but I feel like a lot of the time we're preaching to the choir. Our audiences are people that already care or are aware. So how do we bring that to people that aren't aware?
I think one of the best examples of that was a few meetings ago, Rachel at the town meeting, and wanted to educate everyone on what conservation has done. She included Skakit Beach, Nauset Beach, and discussed like, well, if we hadn't done this, you wouldn't have this.
Was that over 72 Tonset, or was it more
I
recent?
think it was, yeah.
And
It was
that's-
just really thoughtful to make people aware of, like you say, the history of what conservation has done for the benefit of tourism, et cetera, and beautiful places being made.
Well, and this is, in those papers that I sent you, one of this phrase of, there is a growing recognition of the essential role that permanently protected and well-stewarded land can play in healthy communities. So that's another piece that really needs to be put out there. It's not just open space for tree huggers. There is a healthy aspect to clean air and clean water and green spaces. And so, and in particular, in our town, we have a section of town that's called, is it Environmental Justice Community? Is that, do I have that phrasing right? You know, you have, there are, I was trying to think about when I was, working full-time and being a full-time mom and had a husband that traveled, and like, thinking about open spaces was not on my radar. I appreciated them, and, we've always had Pochianos, so that's an awareness thing that is a whole other thing, but I see great value in being outdoors but to know how those things came to be, what keeps those things in place, how do you support that, and how do you influence, and another phrase in here about political decision-making by educating people and not shoving it down their throat, but awareness, again, this whole awareness piece. And I thought particularly about that community. People with, that have large homes and money, and they tend to, if you are a organization that, OCT or Friends of Pleasant Bay, or, you look for donors and you have cocktail parties and they love those things, so they hear about those things. Whether it actually sinks in is another thing. But I feel like there's a whole community that we really haven't made a good point with, raised that kind. And I think what you do with children now in the schools, I think that's a great target point. But so, as we think about an awareness campaign, who is our audience and how do we reach them?
Yeah, one logo I think is good is one neighbor at a time.
That's, I know, I love that.
To gently educate on, the beauty of minimizing your
Leaf blowers.
no, come on.
It's gonna be the next big battle.
And I'll give you one other quote from here, and then I'm going to throw, I asked David to do this, and here I am, blah, 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 blah. But there's one other quote that I really sunk in, and I'm sure, Stephen, you're familiar with this, but, and this was from some wildlife organization, but if and when landowners are considering their options, they are far more likely to turn to a trusted friend, neighbor, or family member, one at a time, for advice than to respond solely to any correspondence from a conservation organization or a municipal committee.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So David, it's yours.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, initially, I think from our last meeting, I said that I'd go away and sort of draft something that could be used for a mailer. And Lynn and I spoke, and that this really has the opportunity to be bigger than that. And even if it doesn't, it probably, I think it's important to take a step back and get everyone on the committee, Steve, Andrea, all of your input into, you know, what this might look like, how it could be most impactful, what it would incorporate, when we might do it, etc. And I think that awareness is part of it. I think education is also very much part of it. They sort of go arm in arm. But help those who we want to reach, and we'll talk about that, become aware of the benefits, but also the issues around continued development without the protection of land for recreation, open space, etc. But also why that's important, as Lynn said. And Steve, OCT probably has done, I mean, OCD is sort of well along that path in terms of now more into education, but I think it's still awareness. But I think we probably could learn something from earlier days at OCT. Not to say that everybody fully understands it yet, but I think it's, you know, OCD has done put a lot of the actions in place that help continued awareness and education. So I think that there'd be some learnings there, as well as there might be some learnings from other town initiatives that were driven by town committees or by the town itself. So I thought rather than just kind of writing, you know, 4 paragraphs and saying, what do you think? We would take a step back and maybe as a team just sort of talk a little bit about what might this look like. And I think to that point, really, this is an early kind of broad discussion. I don't think we have a ton of time today, but I think we could either continue this at a future meeting or have, you know, a special sort of session to kind of really dig into it. But what would be helpful is just to sort of get some of the ideas out on a piece of paper. And so I just thought I would, and Andrea, I don't know if this, Lynn sent this out, I don't know if you'd sent.
I didn't send it to these two, I just took blurbs off.
It's not, you don't really need it because it's just really, and you can find a lot of, just doing a little bit of hunting online. We're not the first town to do an awareness or an education initiative around open space. They're definitely out there. And there's definitely some good literature and some good structure around how you do this. So that's not going to be a big concern to me. The bigger issue is, what do we put into it? What does it look like? How big is it? How little is it? Who does it go to? When does it happen? All things like that. So I printed out one of the documents that Lynn sent to us, and really if you just go to the second page, Lynn, you have one. Steve, you don't really need this, but okay. And if you go to the second page where she had really pulled something out, just talking about what an awareness campaign was, and you know how it's important that it's a structured process. You know, it requires some planning. You got to think about, you know, what the content's going to look like, who it's going to go to, etc. And there were 5 simple steps. There are other awareness plans that have like 10 simple steps, but this was, you know, defining your objective, understanding the audience, who you're going to, crafting the message, what does that look like, choosing the right channels, how do you get it out there, and then what do you do about actually executing it and make it happen. And so I thought that would be a relatively simple place to start, just to get everyone's views around the table on what would make the most sense to do here.
Can I add one more question?
Please.
At the end of this campaign, and you've done it, how will you know if you've succeeded or not?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's I think along with the objective, you know, you're supposed to upfront kind of say, here are the goals we're going to shoot for. I don't know what those goals necessarily should be. They can be very quantitative, like I don't know, you
But
know.
it goes with your call to action. So if your point is a passive one, just make people aware, but I think you have much greater capacity here in terms of open space to protect environment, open space for mental and physical health of residents, open space in terms of real estate values and the expressed values of the town, both in the comp plan and long-range goals that the town has, and for just the quality of life that the town has a history of. But my question to you is, without a call to action in terms of why are you doing this and what's the measurement of your success? For instance, will you be tracking warrant articles that might come up
Right.
for purchases? Would you be looking at working with recreation and tracking number of visitors in open space that we own? Would you be working with kind of environmental protection and making sure that land acquisition kept, adjacent bodies of water healthy, like marshes and stuff? You have there are all different ways to think about this campaign, but the question is, for your committee and the amount of time you're going to put into this, how will you know if you've succeeded?
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think there are probably some simpler goals that we could outline. There are probably some more complex ones that are gonna take a lot of follow-up and some data, and I think that's part of the discussion. I don't have the answer yet on what it would be. I mean, you could say, one of our goals would be that we have a far more unanimous vote at town meeting for purchasing open space. I don't know, something like that. You could, but I think visitors, it's a little bit elusive in terms of how you specifically, ensure that this is a success, but it's critical to do that. So I completely get your point, Andrea, and I think it really depends on how specific and detailed we want to go, and how, if we want to go that route, are we able to do the necessary work to make sure that we are tracking it and following up and ensuring that we're measuring our efforts against those goals.
But it also might hook you to other entities in town who would have that data that you might be impacting.
Right.
You don't have to do this in a vacuum. But honestly, if you're going to send out a campaign, it's public funding, public awareness. You should be able to say, this is why we're doing this.
I completely agree. Everything that you read says that you gotta talk about what success looks like. And I think we need to be as specific as possible. I think there can be some broad statements, that you build support, or you create awareness through this X, Y, and Z, but is it about getting residents to come to events, or is it about how many households gets mailed, or is it about some of that stuff that you just talked about? That's something I think we have to talk about, and so that's why this is gonna take probably a little bit longer, to discuss and think through, because that's just sort of point one. Then we move to what is, who's the audience? Okay, is it just full-time residents? Obviously, we'd like to get summer residents. Is it youth? Is it visitors? Is it all the above, etc.? And that also might help us then lead back to the goals. So I'm not sure we want to, I think the goal piece kind of evolves a little bit, because I just don't know what those goals should be at the moment, to be able to lay them out and say, let's build a campaign that does X, Y, and Z. I don't know enough. We can sort of start there over time, but I think as we build this, we want to then think about, okay, if we're going out to, one of our audiences is the summer resident, how do we goal ourselves on that? What does that mean? And so there are more questions than answers, obviously. But that sort of was the way I thought we'd take this. Now, it's not a lot of time to go through this. There's, it's discussion around defining our objective, understanding the audience, then sort of, thinking about the message. What is it, a message to different people, different, audience groups? How do we get it out there? You know, what are the channels? Is it mailing? Is it, you know, I know there's controversy around yard signs. Is it yard signs? Is it PR and press? Is it whatever that might be? And
All
then,
of the above.
or all the above. And then actually, okay, what does this look like in terms of execution? You know, when does this start? Who does what? What does that look like? So those are sort of the, I seized on the thing that Lynn sent because I thought those are very simple sort of headers to have some early discussion. Does that make sense for everybody? I mean, the harder part is then taking the next step and say, okay, you know, where do we start? Do we just start with the, you know, the objective and maybe throwing out some goals and move down through this? Some of them are a little bit easier because the audiences are finite, I think. You've got full-time residents, summer residents, you've got students, you've got visitors. There may be others I'm not thinking of, but those are easier to just kind of like say, okay, these are the various audiences. Who are we going to go after, or all of them? The objectives are the tougher ones because awareness and education is such a broad word. How do we know that all of our efforts eventually will be, you know, will do what we initially set out to do?
Well, maybe we just go back to start with each one of us sort of say, well, first of all, if you think this is a good idea, but why? What is the purpose of this? What do you think the purpose of this? I'd be interested to hear what everybody has to say. Patty, we start with you.
Can we
Do you have any thoughts on?
No, can we start the other direction?
Oh, that's me.
You.
I've already blabbed enough, so Hardy, while you're with us.
Yeah, I mean, well, initiative-wise, for me, a part that gets overlooked a lot is, and forgive me for going back to landscaping, rental companies, whatever, but somehow, I can't tell you how many homeowners, rental companies, whatever, I know that pay a contract to a landscaping company and they do what they're gonna do. And there's no, well, what are you gonna put down on the lawn? What are you going to, you know, use to do this? So I think part of it in my eyes would be somehow to educate both the short-term rental companies, the homeowners, about developing more of a relationship with their landscaper and directing them to work a little bit in more environmentally friendly ways.
Well, what you're talking about, though, is different than raising awareness about the need or the value of open spaces. You're talking about I don't know where you go
I mean,
with that one.
that's an important
It's an important issue,
campaign in
absolutely,
itself.
but it's not.
But yeah, I don't know if
I
that
see what you're
directly
saying,
relates
yeah.
to
Okay.
So what would be the
whole lot.
purpose of putting an awareness campaign or awareness initiative regarding open spaces in Orleans, the value, the historical value or the future value? Why should it be a priority? What is the purpose of our campaign? Is it to say, here we are? Is it to say, look what's been done and the value of it and how we should look at future happenings in the town? Is the decisions we make, can they be affected by zoning? Should we go there? I mean, so what would be the purpose of raising awareness in the town? Or trying to raise awareness in the town, educating people about that? I know you want to throw a leaf blower in there, we'll draw a picture of a leaf blower.
I didn't say that.
Well, I mean, interestingly, my head went exactly where Hardy's went initially, and then I thought, okay, so at the end of the day, I think my head always goes to trying to affect behaviors, and behaviors that will specifically protect and preserve our environmental treasures, whether that's land, whether that's water, whether that's just the whole culture of Cape Cod and our history. So that's sort of where I went to, is let's get, and then I thought, but no, if, to your point, if you're trying to look at an initiative, well, what are we trying to do? I guess at the end of the day, I would say that the goal of a campaign, an awareness campaign on this, would be to get people to support increasing open space.
Right.
So that would go to dollars in purchase if you're a private entity that's fundraising for this purpose. If you're a municipal entity, that would go to votes at town meeting in order to promote that. But then at the end of the day, well, why are we doing that? Why do we want open space? Which got to the whole list of things you were talking about and Andrea raised that my head didn't even go to. But yes, absolutely, better mental health, better general health, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And then when I add to it, who is our audience? I mean, that almost explodes my brain, because I think with every day that goes by, it ends up becoming a bigger and bigger group with different. So, back in the good old days, I go back maybe 30, 40, 50 years, my good old days, it sort of seemed like it was more of a unified area of the Cape, in terms of there were people who lived here year-round, and then there were people who lived here only in the summer. But the summer people were here pretty much 3, 4, 5 months. I mean, they were part of our community, and they were Cape Codders. They might be part-time Cape Codders, but they were Cape Codders. And now that increasingly changed so that our summer people are here a couple weeks. And they might be just visitors, they might be homeowners, but they're only here a couple weeks. Even our people who are sort of summer residents, or even I'll turn it around, our year-round people are no longer here 11 or 12 months a year. They're here increasingly with 4 and 5 months chunks when they're not here. So, or just, they're here for barely over 6 months. It seems like the whole dynamic has really changed. And with that, it seems like the entire economic strata of that has really changed. We have our year-round people who are well-to-do retired folks. We have our year-round people who are living off the land and struggling as they have for generations, holding down 6 different jobs and somehow keeping it all together. And I know that some of that has always existed, and it's part of what makes Cape Cod unique and special. But to my mind, and when I start trying to think about a campaign of what are we trying to accomplish and who are we targeting, it becomes just really hard, because I can't really get my head around who is that target audience and what are we trying to do? And are we trying to do all of it? And if we're trying to do all of it, maybe that's just an overwhelming non-starter. And what we have to do is embrace this whole thing, but say, yeah, there is all of that. But for purposes of this campaign, we're just going to focus on this. And maybe this is going to be an appreciation of open space to everybody. Or maybe it's going to be looking at a really specific goal of increasing the amount of open space, either municipal owned or OCT owned, privately owned, or conservation restricted owned, over all groups.
Well,
The
yeah.
be-
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, the benefits of open space, I think cross all audiences, because there are natural habitat benefits, there are quality of life benefits, there are recreational benefits there. So I think the benefits actually are broad enough to cover every single target audience. The messaging is probably different. At the end of the day, I think our objective is we want to increase resident, non-resident visitor support for open space or land acquisition initiatives, as simple as that is. And then we have to help, by educating people, help them understand why that's good for them. You know, I said to Linda the other day, and I've always said that with people that are brand new to Orleans, they've bought into a town that they like right now. They didn't know what it was before, but they can help build it into the future, and therefore, you know, I think there might be a different message for them as you maintain the town you became a part of, don't, you know, versus somebody else who's been here for 50 years. And I think that, or it can be a blend, but at the end of the day, I think the benefit is consistent, you know, for everybody, I think. And there, you know, we have a number of specific benefits. I mean, there's lots of benefits to conserved land. I just don't think people think about it as much. But I think that's part of it, 'cause that's part of the educational component.
Yeah, we have to come up with that argument, very convincing argument, not kind of, you know, oh, we've got to
Squishy
do
feels
this, that, and
good.
the other. Because there's a lot of people, when you go to these town meetings, says, why are you even thinking about buying more open space?
Right.
We need more things. So somehow that, to me,
Yeah.
is the target group at the top of the list, is to help these people understand and educate them.
But there are people also that haven't even thought about this.
Right.
There are people that think, why would we want to do this? Or
Right.
what's the importance? And then there are people who it hasn't really crossed their mind at all.
Right.
It's just, is what it is. So I think there's a lot of people in different places.
Can I also ask you a question about, as you frame up the argument, are you going to put this, is your goal, this goes back to how will you know if you've succeeded? I'm thinking CPC. We have 4 buckets in town. It's not 1 bucket, it's 4 buckets. And so as you talk to people, those who haven't thought about open space, but might be using it recreationally, and all the discussions about passive versus active recreation, this hits a lot of different categories. But how do you want to frame the priority of open space while you acknowledge just what you said, that there's in town meeting always the push, why are you going to build more housing? Why do you need more open space when we have so many other needs? And I think unless you couch whatever your outreach is, acknowledging that there are other competing needs, that you will have lost some of your readers.
Right.
If you don't acknowledge their reality.
Okay.
And I think also that, in thinking about this myself, is one of our target audiences is all the new people coming to live in downtown. There's, you know, we're building these affordable housing units and the volume is increasing. And these are often people that work full-time in the community. And I don't know if it's as much to define open space for them, although you could, but to educate what open spaces there are, what the benefit is to them. And in this town also, you know, we have some big tracts of land that are conserved, trails that you can go to, but what's available to people right in their community that they live if they don't drive? And
Just so
open
you-
spaces are small spaces. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, we have 21 new kids enrolled in
I
OEM.
saw that, and that was
Wow,
another
that's
thing
great.
that said, and they're from the new.
From the new housing.
Exactly, so this is
And
something we
Governor
really
Prince,
want.
God help us, and we hope that will get built in the next few years. So, again, your campaign is beautifully timed to, along with the comp plan, to have us think about reinvestment and update our values. And maybe they haven't changed at all, but it's great. I mean, to ask these questions again and figure out your priorities is fantastic.
Right. And I think we also have to probably highlight some of the myths that I think are out there. And, you know, one of the 72 Tonsett issues, when I was at town meeting, there were people voting against it because they said this is gonna take a piece of property off the tax roll and our taxes are gonna go up. The actual math was something like 60 cents a year for, you know, residents of Orleans. You know, I sort of wanted to stand outside and say, I'll pay your first 10 years.
All it takes is one person saying that about your taxes and
Right.
everybody's like,
I know.
Mushrooms.
So I think at some point along the line, it's helpful at some point I acknowledge there could be an impact. Why is that okay? First of all, it's not, I don't think, you know, hugely significant. It'll depend on the amount of properties that go off the market. But I think there's probably some real education around what this means financially. And I haven't done the numbers, but I'm just assuming if one property was small like that, you know, we're not, you know, getting 7 properties a year, 10 properties a year, much as I'd like to.
No.
well, I think also though too, new people in a growing community like downtown is, and you talk about this neighbor to neighbor kind of thing, if just an awareness of open space, what that is, the value to them, what could be the value to them. They know of, you know, Joe next door who's gonna sell off a piece, you know, that
Right.
word of mouth kind of thing. That's just a small part of it, but I just feel like we haven't done a good job of telling people why it's important.
Right, right.
And
And maybe that's,
There's two groups of people.
Yeah.
There's those that know and those that don't know, those that care and those that, you know, love the open space but aren't really aware of how it got there and, you know,
Right.
what it takes to keep that in place.
Well, maybe that's then also a place to start is, outside of this meeting, is to do put down all the benefits, both ones that we know and the ones that are documented and the ones that we find that other towns may have found, on why open space is important and why it is a benefit. Maybe that's probably, you know, step one, so that we all know equally why is this a good thing. I mean, I think we all know in our hearts why, but do we have it all listed? Should we just at first say, okay, we'll be one voice because this is why this is an important thing? Or do you feel we're there already?
And do the math for people. There's a misconception that you build big or buy and develop, that you're increasing the tax revenue for the town versus if you buy open space and do that. So the math that I'm thinking of is, if so-and-so buys a multi-million-dollar house and we get a big bump in tax revenue, but you have more people, so you need more services, you need more workers, so it's almost a wash. So I'm wondering how we could also educate somehow on that maybe bigger isn't better.
So those studies have been done and they're readily available out there. I mean, study after study after study has shown that in fact purchase of open space does not hurt a town financially.
Well, that's
It's just the reverse.
That's an argument we should
which
put
is-
in this perspective.
But then also thinking, if we've got 21 new kids to school, and we've got more people coming in to live here, which is exactly what we wanted, younger families, how are we letting these people know what the town has available to them? And what's available to them? And so, I mean, immediately in my head, I was thinking, well, gee, Fair is an easy walk to OCT's little pocket park property on Boland Pond. which would be a great place for some young kids to take a hike over and have some fun just being in a little open space. I mean, it's just a pocket park, but you don't need to get in a car to drive there. It's just there. And then right on Town Cove, you've got Windmill, you've got Meadow on the Cove, you've got Window on the Cove. Again, little pocket parks where, where people who are coming here to live here, to become part of our community, can start to sort of engage with our open spaces, in turn to start growing an appreciation, using it more and growing an appreciation more for what this means to them in their lives. And I mean, I think most parents are working hard to try to get their kids off those devices and outside getting some fresh air. And if, you know,
Well, and there's
if
some-
after your job and after school, you can quick take your kid for a short walk and just have some time outside, I think that's huge.
there's some really big, good programs that we can point people towards, like Pleasant Bay
Absolutely.
Boating,
Yep,
where the kids can go out and sail and
yep,
experience the outdoors that way.
yep.
So I think that's a big part of our parameter, like you said, to educate us to what we have, and that should in turn crescendo into protecting more land to have more of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to think about the relationship between the land and the water. And clearly there are many benefits of protecting land which protect water. The question, and that should be one of the benefits of protecting land. I'm not sure we promote the water in this case specifically, because I think we're focused on land more than anything, but I think the relationship obviously is important as one of the benefits, because if you protect a 2-acre piece of land on the water, it's gonna have benefits to the water
Great,
versus
yeah.
a large
Yeah,
house
I
with a
guess my
septic.
thought on that is, in this community, land is synonymous with water here because it's all connected.
Yeah, but I hear you, Artie. I'm just wondering whether or not how do we take that forward as it relates to open space per se,
Yeah.
other than tying it in through the benefit.
Right.
It might be, I don't know, I'm just trying to keep it as simple to start as possible, because I think if we broaden it too much,
There's
we're
too
gonna-
much detail.
we're gonna get all, fall all over ourselves.
Yeah, so going back to this define your objective piece, the specifics in there, what I'm hearing from all of you, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is to inform, educate, and increase visibility. That would be an objective.
That's the whole thing.
That's it.
Well, and to promote action, right?
Right.
Promote donations, votes, for
Votes.
more open space.
Inspiring
Use, so-
behaviors is, yeah.
It's sort of under that then use, because use in turn is expected to promote and increase dollars and votes.
And
And
even,
awareness beneath that, to start with awareness, move up to actual use, and then from there to the behaviors that we want in terms of open space with votes and dollars.
Yeah.
If you categorized, if you went back to David's question, if you went back and looked at open space purchases in the town in the last 10 years, you might find that your values, like adjacent to fresh water, or adjacent to salt water, or recreation, or you would find, and that's your argument. Here's the past, is this the direction you want for your future? The evidence is there already, we've made those purchases.
Mm-hmm.
But my question to you is, you're pretty broad, but my question to you is, again, is more use. I completely agree. What are the outcomes you're looking for that will help you get the zen of your message correct? And again, your product, is it going to be a one-page flyer? How how concise does your message need to be, and in terms of, you know, the measure of success? Is it a call to action? Is it a call to support? Are you going to measure over 5 years, over 1 year, over 2 town meetings, recreation enrollment numbers? It's good, you're blue skying, but eventually your own values, what Lynn was asking before, is what is the reason each one of you serve on this committee? What are you hoping to do in your service? Because that can be tied back to the campaign and get very personal in terms of your leadership.
Can I ask a
Yes.
question? Is there a way to, so this is just a sidebar, say in any flyer we put out, you put the website of the town to refer you to open spaces or the website in OCT. Is there any way in the town to track how many people would go to print a map or
Yes.
look at a map?
Your page? Yes. No, there's a way to track how many people are hitting your page, and again, whatever you're putting out to the public, you might want it on the website, on your website page. and
Absolutely,
you
yeah,
might-
yeah.
And a survey. You might want to look at the tools that you're going to use to check yourself with, because we've got a lot of them. But the other thing is, again, you may go back to recreation and say, could you please track this, or to OCT, and could you track this for us, because we're going to measure ourselves over the next year to see if this had any effect. I mean-
Who would be the one to go to get that information? How do you track?
I'm going to work with George. So your staff person is going to help you identify the tools, and then George can reach out, and if we need Mia or Peggy, or, you know, we're going to do a survey, Amanda, George can help you sort that through.
So that is one possibility of, you know, us as a group being able to track any action
Absolutely.
that would inspire on a website. And more, I mean, you know, like, I get this from George, my dad was the same way. He came to every meeting with a yellow lined pad of paper. If you are younger, my kids, it's all here. Look at Stephen, it's all here, you know. And so giving a website that's where they'll go.
And again, I want you to think about, you have to drive content, but you're not executing this.
Right,
Staff will execute.
yeah.
So, you know, we have the information machine now to do whatever you want to do. But the really personal part is what do you want out of it? And why, frankly, why are you serving? Because your reasons to value this should be part of the compassion of how we read and relate to what you're going to eventually send to us.
Stephen, I'm interested in your thoughts. Do you have any in this conversation?
I mean, I think you've all had a lot of good dialogue about kind of the values and how you are thinking about starting to reach different audiences, what those different audiences are. I think to Reese's point David made, I would encourage you to really be careful about defining the scope so that your message can have the most effectiveness. And from my perspective, as the town open space committee, I think over the last 25 years, so like 2000 to 2010, for example, when the land bank existed, this town did a heck of a lot to protect open space. And I think there are important successes to point to in that era. But then when land bank became CPC, our activity as a town has really decreased in terms of open space protection. And I think that's a problem when we continue to see more and more development pressure, and we know that we need these intact natural systems to sustain the quality of life, to improve our climate resilience, to maintain biodiversity, right? All these benefits, and so putting it in those concrete terms of we're not doing enough to protect these last remaining undeveloped, unprotected spaces in our community. And we can do more. And I think CPC is an obvious place to start, but I also think that at this stage where you're thinking big, don't limit yourselves to CPC, right? This town has access to funds beyond CPC, and there's precedent in other communities for towns spending raising new money for open space acquisition outside of CPC, and to the point about protecting open space being of economic benefit to the town, I think you can justify those purchases with enough background information provided and enough awareness built. But I think Simpson Island, that was that's the big high-profile disappointment in this town in recent years, that the town meeting turned that partnership down. And I think that was really the last big ask of Orleans voters for open space protection, right? I'm kind of setting 72 Tonsett aside because that's a general municipal property, as you all know, that's not an open space property. So Peck was great. I think that was a relatively modest ask for an important waterfront property that abutted existing open space. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us to try to bring those opportunities to the town to test the limits of how much this community is willing to support acquisition of additional open space. And we haven't really pushed that envelope a whole lot in recent years.
And that's where I think the education piece can be of benefit, because it can be politically persuasive. If you have townspeople, affordable housing was the push, and that just went in, rightly so. But it doesn't seem politically correct at the moment to like it was once upon a time. Well, the land bank made that easier, but how to, again, put out the benefits of open space, why it's important, why it's something you want to vote for your town. The difference is if you don't do it.
Yeah.
And the urgency.
Look at town,
The urgency with it.
Yeah,
no,
well, and then that goes to the team SOS with APCC, so.
And Lynn, I would absolutely reject the political pressure. We have a housing crisis. We also have
Yes.
an environmental crisis. And you can't, it's not one or the other. We have, the town has to, residents, we have to deal with all of it. So to be intimidated at all by any kind of other pressure is, you're already editing yourselves.
Right.
That's why I'm saying go with what you believe in, because you're already engaged in serving. And to Steve's point, that it's critical that we keep investing. It's absolutely critical, so make the case. Don't be intimidated.
And you're right, that those two things aren't in opposition to each other. Affordable housing and open space can be together.
They have to be,
They have
because
to be,
again,
right.
Yes, we got 21 students, and yes, FAIR is open, but none of those are purchasable. This is a housing crisis. This is not the next generation who are stakeholders, who are land owners in our community. So that, we're far from successful yet. We're still in a crisis. And the same way, we have an existential threat in terms of our environment. And you just have to think about February this year to understand the issues, the low-lying roads, the Skaker Peak retreatment plan. People, how can you connect them with the success and ask them to keep investing in success in any way you deem that's goals for you versus just scaring people?
Right.
Good. I guess the next question, it depends on how much time you want to take, Lynn, as to kind of where we go from here on this. And we've gotten some good input. It either, I think, requires probably another session together, maybe outside of our meetings, or is it time to start to put something down on a piece of paper that at least says, here are the steps we need to take? I'm just trying to think on how so we don't leave today feeling like we've had a good discussion, but we don't have a next step. So I'm just curious if anybody's got some views on that. Based on what we've talked about, I'm happy to sort of at least document, look, here are the things that we know today what we have to go find, or what we have to do more research into, but I'm not quite sure how to make that next step as a group. Without either having a marathon session where we map it out on a flip chart, or we sort of put something out there as a starter.
One suggestion is that we all come back with a written starter and see what that looks like. Like Andrea says, if we can get specific,
Mm-hmm.
more specific in what we want, that it's, then we go to George. Would it be helpful, do you think, to have George come in and help us work through
Sure.
wording or anything like that?
I mean, it wouldn't be, to that point, if everybody wanted to literally outline some of their thoughts on these 5 points,
A short blurb, everybody do it?
yeah, at least it would help us understand, okay, where do we have consistency, where do we have some ideas we haven't thought about, and where do we have stuff that, well, we're not gonna focus on that right now. At least that would get us, I think, to a level playing field.
One thing that isn't on here, which I think is a good point, from Andrea, is how you track
Right.
your success or failure or whatever. So adding that to it too. Yeah, so if you defined your objective, define your audience, and understand your audience, or you're speaking to multiple audiences. I feel like if I picked an audience, I would address it to the downtown area and make it available to all.
When you say address it to the downtown area, what do you mean?
As far as informing and educating, the needs of, if you have a mansion out on the water or just your house is you have a yard and you're out of town, as opposed to living in downtown,
Mm-hmm.
open space is gonna mean different things to you in
Mhm.
terms of where you live and work and walk and
Right.
so, trying to articulate a message to the people that live within walking distance of open spaces. The way Judith was talking about Mullen Pond, or, the Cedar Pond, that land, when that goes through and becomes, even walking to Skakit Beach, but,
Well, I think that,
or speaking to people that have no thought, don't think about
Yeah.
open space.
but to me, that's a different message probably to start for your different audiences, and then you sort of think where there's common ground, I think. Because I think the message to someone living in town that would rely on open space for their own kind of open space versus someone that has 3 acres is different. The message is different to those two types of residents, and the message might be different to somebody who spends 3 weeks a year here, and the message might be different to somebody who's coming for a 2-week vacation. But there's gonna be a common denominator somewhere there.
Well, the people that come for 3 weeks a year aren't voting people.
Right.
They don't have a stake that way. They like to come to Cape Cod, they like the open spaces on Cape Cod. And it's just an awareness piece that's, I think, important.
Right.
But when you're talking about people that actually live here, and if you live in downtown, to be able to know that there's a place you can go outside of town where there are larger open spaces for trail walking and all that. Do the people that live out of town, are they aware of the open spaces that are right in downtown where people also live and dwell? And the message, I think, can be similar, but I think it's an awareness for the people that live in the downtown community, a greater awareness that they're as important for open spaces as that 20-acre piece of land
Right,
with trees and
right.
out there that some people don't think is important. But
No, that's a good question. Are we appealing to those who just vote at town meeting, or are we appealing to a wider group? You could argue that the person who's here 3 weeks a year could they play a role in potentially funding something down the road, you
Would
know?
they be willing, yep,
So
or do
it's-
you enjoy these resources?
Yeah.
No, absolutely, and they can, yes, donate to a place like OCT, I think that's important too, but
And in terms of our short-term visitors, for instance, I think if they are giving input and feedback to our businesses, to our chamber, that says, we come to Orleans and we spend time here because of what you offer, including, that can be huge at town meeting. Your businesses and your people who have investment in what keeps the town really active and thriving, in turn, will look at that as very positive, not just from those warm and fuzzy, oh great, our environment is better, but from the real, in your wallet, hey, this is bringing me business and visitors. And so this is an important basis for our economy in order to draw people. So I'm no help with this, because every time I think more of it, it just expands it instead of narrowing it down. But I think what I'm hearing, and maybe not, maybe this is just what keeps ringing in my head, is what we're really after is greater support for open space. Be that purchased privately, municipally, or be it votes at town meeting, that at the end of the day, that's really what we're after. And that's kind of why we want greater awareness, higher use,
Right.
more visits, wider numbers of people aware of it, et cetera.
greater awareness too that says that this is important to the town of Orleans.
Yes.
That's
And to your point, Lynn, that's then the people who are living downtown, the people who are out in the boondocks who maybe can just walk around the corner to get to their favorite open space area. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so what do you think about just everybody sort of
Yeah.
brainstorming on their own? Put something into words just on those specific things that are listed here.
It's just, at least
I don't know
it's
if
a
you have to
starting
do,
point.
choosing the right channels really wouldn't be, that would be something we would get help from, I think, Amanda on. We don't have to go there, but,
Well, people might have some ideas that we hadn't thought about. I mean, obviously,
Yep.
you know, there's your social channels, there's your mailing, you know, but there are other things that are out there that we might not have thought about.
Yeah, like
Well, and the town is using social media now, Instagram and.
Yeah.
yeah.
all
Facebook.
that stuff.
Yeah.
As you do your editing, is your plan then to send your comments to one person for open meeting law issues?
Oh,
Or you
no,
just
I was
bring it
thinking
back
about,
for the next
I was
meeting?
thinking bring it back for the next meeting, sort of
Right.
but, and that brings us to another subject, but, and whatever we sort of put together, again, it may be helpful to have George come in at some point and walk through that with us, just sort of to help us. We seem to.
Another idea, if you want, I don't know if it would help you, but if you send your comments just before the meeting, the packet post, your notes can be included to be shared as part of your packet.
Okay.
I'm just giving you options, and
Yeah.
rather than have, so at least you can reflect on
Pre-read
them
them, yeah.
before the
Yeah.
meeting and come in ready to agree, or.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay,
I think that's a good idea.
So send them to you then?
Yes.
And by
that'd be
what
great.
date would you like them, so that you can include?
Well,
Before
the
that.
next meeting is May 20th, and so, where's the there? So how about the Wednesday before that? So that's 3 weeks from now,
That's the
right after the town meeting,
be the 13th
13th.
of May. Okay.
Okay, we're gonna bounce that, but depending on when we have APCC come, is everybody okay with that, having them come and sort of talk to us about, they have a plan
Yeah.
to help organizations like ours work with
I think it'd be really
municipal
helpful.
governments, but also sort of their, and they can talk about their own efforts theirs is obviously Cape Cod wise, and ours is Orleans wise. And I'm interested, and I'm glad they're willing, so if everybody's
I
good with
don't know that they do, but I wonder if they might have somebody who would be willing to lead our group in a little session to narrow it down.
I don't know.
I mean, that-
Yeah.
Facilitator skills are something that are really important.
Yes.
And I don't have them, but it can really focus and bring a lot of this open brainstorming into something very specific and concrete.
I
Assuming I can-
am actually going to see if, well, jumping ahead here to the May meeting, I have to take my mom to an appointment, and so David has graciously accepted leading that meeting. And so I can watch it afterward or participate before, so I might ask APCC if they could come in June. But, well, I'm gonna ask them what's best for them. If it's best for them to come in May, then it may be that I'm not here, so, let's say TBD on that. But if you still would go ahead and
Yeah.
work on something and submit it by May 13th, I'll know certainly by then, whether they're
Okay.
coming. If that's okay.
So we're gonna submit by May 13th, but the meeting's actually May 20.
Correct.
It's May 20th.
Right.
And David's chairing that. Like I said, I promised my mom a long time ago, and she doesn't always ask me to take her to, she's 93 and she's driving down the highway, so, yes, I will take you. Okay,
All right.
so let's, anybody have anything else they want to say on this today? Or?
Good discussion.
I really appreciate, David, your being willing to sort of lead that off and.
I don't know what- how-
We all
how
are
far we
going
got,
off on
but-
different
No.
tangents and
Good discussion.
really to think about bringing it back to something tighter. I picture just, and this is just me, I picture some kind of a flyer thing that's easy to put in the community center, that's easy to put in a mailbox or something like that. I don't picture a big broad thing, but also taking advantage of social media, of the town talk kind of thing, even, the newspaper, to sort of for awareness, but that's
Okay.
a broader subject. But so it doesn't have to be a long thing, it just needs to be concise, specific, and, goal-oriented, and
All right.
whatever you come up with.
I mean, the Massachusetts Land Trust Coalition did a long process to provide resources for land trusts, open space committees on the value of land conservation, and they have some really, what I think are really helpful resources.
Okay.
What is
Can I-
it, the Massachusetts Land Trust?
Land Trust Coalition.
Oh.
Can I send everyone a link? Is that?
Yeah.
Please,
Yeah,
please do.
that'd be
Right.
great. Where are they based, in Western Massachusetts?
They share an office, they're a very small staff, but I think they share an office with the Sudbury Valley trustees.
Yeah, I think something that I have here came from them, and it may be this part about landowners are more likely to turn to a friend, neighbor, or, family member than to a conservation organization. Even though you think, oh, you guys know the avenues, but they will take the advice of maybe they don't. So that's,
That's kind of what OCD does too, by developing relationships with homeowners over the years and eventually swaying them to,
well, the stronger a community's relationships or social capital, the greater the likelihood that someone in need of information will have someone in their social network who can help, or that they know that they can ask, so, you're right. Okay, all right, moving on. Approval for meeting minutes for March. Everybody thank you again, Chris, always. And you're back to work, you said, did I hear you
Yes.
say that?
Yeah,
How many, are you working full-time?
yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you for doing
I'm
this.
I'm going to abstain, but thank you very much because I wasn't able to be here. And
Oh,
so
okay.
it is very, very helpful to have great minutes like this. In fact, it's inspired me. I haven't yet watched the meeting, but I will because it sounds like I missed a good one. So thank you for that, Chris.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so you get to vote, Chris. Okay, do I have a motion to,
I make a motion to approve the
Second.
minutes.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next meeting, May 20th, we'll obviously be talking before then, and motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All in
Second,
favor?
Thank you.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.